Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scott C Business. I'm here with Stefano Covolan. Is that how you say your last name?
It's a Covolan, but
Covolan.
it's not a big deal.
Yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Can you just start off by telling us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. So I'm an immigrant, first of all, living in Singapore, originally from Italy.
Okay.
I have a background in finance, and I'm a startupper. So I've been spending basically my entire life in the startup field, either by running companies or being an advisor or an angel or simply working in startups in many cases as well. Today, I'm the founder of Korporatio, which is a blockchain company. Got in the blockchain space around 2014, a little bit earlier than the Ethereum ICO or Genesis, as we
Oh, okay.
prefer to call it. Running a couple of experiments back in the days in school on like some of the exchanges with like market manipulation, like all the things to have fun
Hmm.
around. And then when Ethereum came along, that's when like the smart contracts and all the potential really started making sense for me. And then I just decided to like take a path on that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. In terms of like a personal capacity, how busy does your day look like, and what do you spend most of your day doing these days?
Well, as a founder, like running a startup, days are always like extremely busy. You can have like the people that are like telling that you no matter what need to hustle, and so you need to work like 16, 17, 18 hours. That becomes kind of like things that you must do no matter what. Your agenda is always fulfilled with something, either because you need to work and so do specific things that might be like some coding or some ADM or some articles to post, or because you need to run meetings or strategizes or whatever it is. So you kind of like being stretched of that like mark of 16 hours per day, even more in some cases. It's pretty much normal. So how my day looks like is pretty much waking up, answering emails, start planning the day around like the meetings, the people, the stakeholders, and everything, and just like keep going as much as I can until you get to a point where you're so tired that you're like, okay, I need a break, and you just go to sleep at that point.
Yeah. Do you have any like focus on like ways to balance it out? Like, do you do any meditation? Is there anything that you work in there to just help keep that balance?
I try, but I'm extremely bad in that, to be honest. I admire a lot of people that are capable of doing that with like a specific routine. I do a little bit of meditation. I normally push very hard on Sunday, so
Mm.
where I can have like a proper session in the morning and kind of like going through the entire week, which for as much as I understood, and not an expert on meditation, but normally you should do that every single day. But I find that quite confusing. What helps me a lot is normally like coffee in the morning while reading a tons of articles to kind of like, starting setting the path. And then like in the afternoon, a break of like maybe half an hour, 1 hour with a tea, staying outside, just relaxing, switching completely off from everything, letting both laptop and phone inside, and just like, chilling and relaxing. And
That's
as
good.
well, cooking is another thing that helps a lot, in my opinion. Always trying to like, don't go out, don't order on a takeaway, or don't use an app to order food. Just like buy the products, spend it like 30 minutes, 40 minutes to cook like a proper meal. That's normally happen for dinner. At least like you're forced to like completely switching off
Mm.
when you're like chopping, taking care of like three, four different pots at the same time. You can't think about something else. Otherwise, you're gonna burn everything, and you don't want to lose money on that, of course.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that's yeah, you definitely sound like the typical founder nowadays, just loaded with work and just fighting for your time.
It
Um,
is. It is. Time is the most complicated commodities to have. That's insane. How little we value time and we waste that during a day. And when we're forced on like wanting more, we can't do anything about that. It is so limited and precious. It's insane.
Yeah. So would you say that the majority of your time then is basically all dedicated to your company? And sorry, how did you pronounce it again? Because
Sure.
I thought it was Corporatio, but I think you pronounced it slightly differently than what I thought originally.
It's everybody called that Korporatio. The right pronunciation should be Korporatio because it's
Oh,
from
okay.
the Esperanto, but I don't think that anybody ever tried to actually speak that. So I'm relating on Google Translate so that.
Fair
So
enough.
it should be like with the Z as a pronunciation.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Um, but answering yes, I think that nowadays pretty much a solid like 80% of the time is based on that. At 10%, 15% probably it's like with friends, chilling a little bit. And a 5% is like on advisory in the companies where like I'm an Angeline and so on.
Okay. Okay. So then diving into your company then, can you give us a little bit of an introduction to it?
Sure. So what we do is basically we use blockchain technology, in particular the Ethereum blockchain technology, to manage company incorporation and company governance. What does this mean? That we have a set of smart contracts that runs automatically all the steps and all the tasks that are normally managed by lawyers, incorporation agents, notaries, chamber of commerce, financial service authority, you name it, basically. In order to, like, for example, transferring shares, having a board meeting, issuing dividends, or a cap table of all the shareholders that you can have, and et cetera, et cetera. If it's relating to the company governance, we probably have a feature for that, or we're developing a feature for that, as
Okay.
well as the company incorporation. So if you're thinking about like the concept of the DAO, it's extremely easy to think about that as a legal DAO. So you get your DAO, your decentralized application, and that is matched by an existing or a real company where, in this specific case of this decentralized application, the tokens are the shares of the company.
Hmm. Can you just
That's in super simple.
briefly explain to the people watching who don't know what a DAO is? Just give them a real quick
Sure.
rundown.
So a DAO is the name is the decentralized autonomous organization, where basically what does this mean is that you use the entire set of smart contracts to have a group of people that come together inside a decentralized application, and they can run this company completely in a way that is decentralized. In the specific case of the DAO, can be also anonymous, while in our specific case is not, because you can't have anonymous shareholders in majority of the countries in the world.
Hmm.
Um, and so this is allowing you, for example, to not being obliged of being all at the same time or all in the same room when you're running like a board meeting, or as well to have like these tokens that can be transferred extremely easily between shareholders and people and stakeholders in general, without having to pass in through, for example, a lawyer, and so having to pay like, you know, hundreds of dollars every single time that you're transferring something. But you can just relate on paying like the gas fee of the Ethereum network and nothing else.
Okay. Yeah, that's awesome. So what gave you the idea to start this, and when did you start to actually, I guess, like start discussing it and start to really formulate this into a real plan that you're going to start to execute?
Sure. So the idea came up a couple of years ago, I guess, at this point, around, yeah, 2017, Q1, Q2 of 2017. The reason behind was coming up from the fact that I invested in a startup, and few months after, the startup went for like a new round, bringing me home quite an insane return on that. When that happened, unfortunately, my happiness lasts for like 30 seconds, because the problem was like, this is awesome because my money are now double, triple than what it was before. But that was a fake thing, because in the
Mm.
startup, you're in a private market, which means that if you want to liquidate, you need to go outside on the street and basically finding someone that is interested in buying your own shares. You don't have a secondary market or either a public market to exchange that with no problems. So that thing, combined to the fact that I was already in the blockchain space, was kind of like matching the two things, or there was something there that I was like, wait a second, blockchain can actually solve this. So I started doing a tons of research on seeing if someone was actually working on something like that. And the whole path, every single articles was actually sending to the DAO. There was no legal structure matched to that. So I was like, okay, nobody's working on something like that. I need this product. So I started working on this product because I was like, at least I know that I'm going to use it.
Mm.
And then, you know, like while you're actually developing that and so on, you figure out that there is much more that you can do with something like that. And it's just not based on like transferring the shares. And then it became like what it is today. So, you know, like with a lot of people giving feedbacks, listening to them, and trying to like expand the product more and more. The real product, so the first allowance of it came up in January of 2018. And so it took like a pilot of around 9 months between that with the Seychelles government to basically be allowed. Because the big issue was that by creating that model, we had to find a jurisdiction that was allowed in that model to actually be possible. Think about the law that Wyoming just passed a few months ago, where now like assets can actually be owned by blockchain assets, or that the transaction on the blockchain can actually be considered legal. When we started working on that, there was nothing on that. Everybody was still talking about like the ICO waves. There was no regulation, no law, nothing at all. So we had to like, you know, knock in the door and trying to be like, hi, this is our idea. And people were like, we have no idea what you're talking about. So it took a little bit of time to get there. But forward that on 9 months, and then we got approved at the beginning of 2018.
Wow. Yeah, that is a ride
It
for
is.
sure. Yeah. So, um, I guess that gives us a little bit of an idea for the origins. What are some of the next big steps that you guys are taking, or like some of the next like updates that are going to be coming out for your project?
So we're gonna release actually at the end of this month quite a lot of new features because we're in that phase of like releasing our complete version 2.0. So the new features that are coming out are, for example, a financial section where you can matching, for example, and tracking automatically both Bitcoin wallets and Ether wallets. So if your company, for example, instead of having a bank account or in parallel or having a bank account, does have as well a corporate wallet that can be both in Bitcoin or in Ethereum, you can track that automatically. Another one is a section to upload documents. So the incorporation agent can automatically upload the documents and you don't have to go through that process. I don't know how many people are familiar in the governance of having a company or managing that, but it's extremely common that like when you're creating that, the agent send you the papers and then you lose them. And so you're like in a path of having to like text your agent multiple times and be like, what was my company number? What do I have to put in this specific form to open a bank account? I need to prove to X, Epsilon, Z that the cap table is that. How do I do that?
Hmm.
All of these things can actually be placed in one specific section. On top of that, that is like what is going to happen at the end of this month. Few future developments that we're actually taking a look at. One, which is probably the most important, is the option of like going away from MetaMask. So today, everybody that wants to use our platform needs to have MetaMask installed, or at least like another system that allows you to open and surf and interact with decentralized application. This is not really a good solution, unfortunately, for people that are not in the blockchain space, because you know you need to like either install MetaMask as a plugin or download Brave and then install MetaMask as well. You need to get familiar with that. Every time that there is something happening in the decentralized application, you need to approve the transaction on MetaMask. And MetaMask doesn't have a pop-up. It does just have like the notification on top, which, you know, for people that are in the space, it's become super familiar and so obvious that it's like, okay, that's the way, I know how to do that. But for people that are trying that for the first time, the user experience is not on point at all. compared to like other systems that are not blockchain related.
Hmm.
So we are gonna like bypass that and allowing people to at that point joining the URL or going to the URL of the decentralized application and just like signing up via email. And we're gonna use like most likely an open source project to generate wallets every single time. So they don't have to do any initial step and they can just rely on their own email to log in on the wallet and so on. So we wanna like do this process where we're going to push more and more on improving the user experience and therefore allowing people to having the easiest possible solution to manage their company for the technical part. The other big area where we're pushing is of course like the jurisdiction. Today we offer incorporation in Seychelles, Panama, and some in Saint Grenadine. We want to expand to more jurisdictions. So for example, still on the offshore space, that can be, for example, BVI, but as well, like as mentioned before, Wyoming does have a law for that. So we want to be there. In Europe, countries like Malta, Estonia, they're doing like a very proactive thing on like the blockchain solution. So those are countries that we're looking at and trying to, you know, build something and be available there as well. So moving from that side, from like the offshore to the more air bracket onshore jurisdiction, in order to allow at that point the market to use whatever solution they want. You know, offshore still has problems. Not everybody wants to go offshore. If I'm thinking about like my dad thinks that going offshore means doing something illegal. Even if you already pay taxes and everything, even if you're like not trying to launder money. And my dad is like, no, you can't do that. That's illegal. What are you doing? He thinks I'm a criminal. I had to explain everything like for hours, basically. So, you know, at that point, it's like, for the people that are like 50s, 60s, 70s, or whatever, that grew up in a specific way, you're not going to change their mind. You, as an entrepreneur, must provide them a solution that they can use. So my dad is in Europe, for example. If I bring a concept that can be like Malta or Estonia, he's not going to have a problem with that because they're in the European Union. So those are the two macro area where we're focusing right now. And of course, like by the end of summer, we should actually be able to gain a lot of those things.
Okay. Yeah. Wow. You guys have got a lot of going on, to say the least, and that just seems to be in your short term. So yeah, that sounds like a lot, no doubt. So a lot, sort of along with that, how would you say that your company or like the platform that you guys are kind of building out, how would you say that fits in with like similar projects, or how it differs, and or I mean, if you feel that you're the only project in this space, just feel free to share that with us.
So for the blockchain side of that, I think that there are like players coming up. The only thing is that they're still focusing on and exclusively on the DAO aspects. I still have to come across some like companies that are currently at today live with a product that are also having that legality aspects on that. I've seen products that are like going for the tokenization of the assets, so mirroring those assets, where you get like, you know, your stock from a public company, and then you have an asset, an ERC20 that mirrors exactly that. But the token is not the asset. It's a small detail for the final user, but there's still like two different things, because that means that the backend office work, it's still there. If I'm transferring a token from A to B, and it's mirroring something, then I need someone from the backend that actually compiled that line. Well, in our specific case, that doesn't happen. So then it's a personal opinion, of course, but I think our model is much more scalable in that sense, because we don't need all of that work. Because when you're transferring, that is automatically done, fulfilled, and compliant. So in the space so far, I think that in the way that decentralized application works, there are a lot of players in the space. Take, for example, Aragon. They just released the 0.7 version of their platform. It's amazing. It's a beautiful piece of tech, but it's not legal. It stops there. You know, me and you, we can get together and decide that we want to do something together, but we're not just yet ready to have a real business on that. And so to test it out, to run some things or some thoughts about that, we can actually just use a DAO without having like the legal aspects on that. If you're thinking like on the legality aspects of the product, then you get a lot of players outside the blockchain. You know, you can get like companies like even the incorporation agents itself that are doing like the incorporation aspects, and then they provide you maybe with an application or a dashboard. Now, the limitation of the technology at that part is the fact that they are just reading only. So you go to the agent uploads the documents there or lets you know that you have a renewal in place, that you need to pay your bills and so on. And they upload that to you via a mobile app or through a dashboard. You can't do anything on that. You can just like read. So even in that case, there is a step in the right direction, but you really need to pass through them every single time. You still have to pay those hundreds of dollars every single time that you're doing something. So at today specifically, I think that we are the only one in the space doing what we're doing, or basically matching the two things together. But you do have like players in the legal side that are growing, and on the tech side that are growing. We're just like specifically in the middle on that.
Okay. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah, you guys seem to be very, very unique for what you're actually doing, and I haven't really seen anything else like what you guys are doing right now. So, yeah, very, very unique to say the least. Um,
Thank you. Appreciate. Till it lasts.
yeah, yeah. So, how is Corporatio or Corporatio? It's hard for me to pronounce.
That.
Um, how is it impacting and developing the enterprise side of blockchain? We've briefly talked about this a little bit already, but if you'd like to expand a little bit as to how it's impacting the more enterprise and the corporations and the more business side of blockchain rather than
Sure.
the finance.
So, well, we don't really like track a lot of like the financial part. You know, you do have like financial features where it can be, for example, the new ones that we're going to release where you can track option in and out movements that are happening on a wallet, or as well if you want to transfer shares from one person to another, then you know you can have like a sort of smart contracts or an escrow where you know you put ether on the smart contract, the other person transfer the shares, the swap is happening automatically, and that is kind of like the financial aspects on that. All the rest of the code, it's legal tech or reg tech, if we want to call it. So for the enterprise, I think that is allowing them to enter in a different angle. At least like from my knowledge, from what I'm reading, only big players right now are looking into like, you know, developing their own blockchain solution or running experiments with blockchain or testnet or closed blockchain. While the SMEs, I don't think that we're yet at that stage. You know, as we have like Amazon or Google or Microsoft for like the server side that actually focus and target only and exclusively on the SMEs, blockchain is still not there. Where we see a potential is exactly like with the incorporation agent. So by legality, we're not an incorporation agent. So we're not the ones that incorporate the company. We partner with incorporation agents to do that. And therefore, by doing that, the incorporation agents that works with us needs to learn how to use some aspects on the blockchain, of course, because they need to get a couple of information on like how to enter the decentralized application at that point. Vice versa, you can have models where they're like even more expand, where you can have an agent that it becomes like a sort of like powered by Korporatio at that point, where they only and exclusively work with creation of smart companies. So at that point, they're like getting more and more aware of how the model works, on the type of features that they can have, or the type of information they can have. Some of our agent then like, you know, ask us private questions in the sense of like, what do you think about Ethereum? Or like, what is the difference between Ethereum and I saw this Ethereum classic thing? You know, that they start being like a little bit interesting at that point. So we don't allow like completely white label solution, but if the agent wants to use and be in charge of actually like running the model for themselves, then they learn about blockchain on that. We provide a tool for them that otherwise they would not have. Because it's true, they can have their mobile app, going back on what we say previously. But in this specific case, let's say that I transfer a share from me to you. The application generates automatically a document. So everything that is done in the back office is completely automated. The agent work is reduced by tons of time. So even if the agent doesn't understand completely how everything works in the back end, they still know two important things: that it's blockchain, and that on the other side, they save a tons of time and therefore money by using a solution like that. And then, you know, hopefully there is an interest for them to like learning more about the entire space and all the things that are around, you know, not only what we are doing.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully that'll really like spread the awareness about what you guys are doing and other people in the space as well. Um, so where do you see like your project going in the next year and in the next 5 years, and how you think that's going to sort of play out?
So the 12-month range is a little bit easier because it's a more clear thing, of course.
Yeah.
We want to get to the point of like having more and more jurisdiction, of course, having a product that does have multiple new features as well, that we want to automate as much as we can on like on the chain of the company governance aspects. We want to try to like run a couple of like experiment and as well like open source experiment here and there. Maybe, for example, a swap model between tokens, so shares of a company, and for Ether maybe, or another crypto that can be completely in a decentralized way, which is going to be like pretty challenging, but it's one of the things that we're looking at as well. Hopefully getting through our next round, because otherwise the question of the 5 years would not probably be valid, I guess. Classic startup problems, I guess, like everybody else. In the 5 years mark, we want to get to the point of basically having the option to have these companies that are completely automated in the sense of like paying taxes. So one of the goals would be extremely nice if there is the option of having like an API from, you know, the Chamber of Commerce or the Financial Service Authority, where you can plug, so you can have like a piece of smart contract that automatically provide you the accounting of the company. And that accounting is automatically put into the tax report. And the tax report is automatically sent to the government to pay your corporate taxes. So the user doesn't have to do anything on that side. Second thing could be, for example, the transfer of shares on a almost public market type of thing. So we're kind of like partnering up with exchanges in the space to develop actually like pilots with them, in a way of like, how can a person moving from incorporation to public offering or public listing on a crypto exchange in a matter of like days, rather than having to wait 5 or 10 years for the company to be mature enough. And that thing is like, you know, trying to disrupt every single line of the company governance and the bureaucracy that there is around that at today's stage, little by little and piece by piece. And in order to do that, think about like the exchange side. We partner with, for example, we have a pilot with Abacus Exchange. The accounting side, we are working with Gilded. So we're not trying to like, reinventing the wheel or anything like that. We're always trying to like partnering up with companies in the space where we can help each other. Because if I have an entire team, an entire dedicated team, and is working like on automated accounting in the blockchain, why would I put energy to do something when I'm alone, when someone else is already doing that? I'd rather partnering up, sharing revenue of doing that, for example, and at the same time, having a win-win situation for the both of us.
Yeah.
So hopefully we're gonna get on like more and more, and then definitely there is much more that is gonna come from the community on like new features that you can develop, new things that you can do on that.
Yeah, and yeah, I guess it's pretty challenging to map out 5 years, but I feel like you gave a pretty good idea of at least the direction that you guys are going, so people have an idea of
Awesome.
how it's going to sort of evolve. So, what is your current user base size look like? Like, are you getting a lot of people who are starting to check it out and use it? Like, how does that look like?
We're having a lot of requests of like information from every type of medium, and as well like every type of like inquiries. That's a little bit tricky actually, because we would like to build an issue like a new website, like with, for example, like an FAQ page and so on. Unfortunately, we're still not able to define like what are the classic questions, apart from like, of course, how much does it cost, in which countries supported, and etc. etc. We thought it was like clear already. Apparently, it's not. So we need to, roll our sleeve and do a better job in UI on that. But in general, like we have requests from everywhere in the world. It's really like it's very difficult, because you can have like a person asking information because that person is a digital nomad, and maybe he or she is living in Bali. Then you can jump and having like someone that wants to set up an hedge fund, and so they require you to help them out for an hedge fund license. And maybe they want to go in a specific country like San Vincent, because the banking law there is very specific. And then you can jump again and you can have like someone from Latin America that wants to set up a private transportation company, where it's all around like the legality of, for example, Argentina. And we don't know anything about Argentina. We don't work there. But, they ask questions. People trust you because like you're a source for that, and you operate in 3 countries. So they automatically assume that you know a lot of things in other countries and other jurisdictions as well. So you're constantly receiving a lot of questions. On our website is currently like the biggest medium that we have, where like people just like come, plug, open the plugin that we have and start chatting with us directly, because we felt that it was like much easier, and it seems to be that the case. But the user base, it's crazy. Like you really move from like a single person to maybe a company of like 30 people having like hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue. And then there is everything in between, of course. For the sector is the same thing. When we first creating the product, we were expecting like, oh, clearly blockchain. Everybody from the blockchain, only people from blockchain. That was the case till before the bear market. If I'm looking at the numbers of today, we actually have more traditional companies than blockchain companies. And even these companies goes and range from like food production, commodities, transportation, sports, esports as well, social media, FBA, e-commerce, you name it, really. It's like everything. It's the beauty of the model, and at the same time is maybe even like our mistake on not having like, because it's so versatile, because it applying for every single type of company. It works well if you're a one person company, because you don't have to rely on an incorporation agent every single time. Maybe you have like a low budget, so the fact that you're saving so much money in every single action that you're doing, it helps you. vice versa, if you're a startup and you start having like, a lot of advisors, stock option for the employees and the investors, managing your cap table becomes the most important thing. And so this system helps you with that. If you're a big company, having like all the shares model, having like the board meetings, for example. So the saving time aspects on that, because you don't care about saving money at that point. You're already like a multi-million dollars company. You clearly have the budget to go in a traditional way, but you want to save time. Those like that board that might require you to actually last only like 1 hour, and then you don't have to follow up with anything else. In countries like Singapore, for example, you need to print out the paper, you need to sign that, you need to return that to the agent, you need to wait for an approval for that. It's not a complicated thing, but you lose time by doing that. And you need to do that every single time. So unfortunately, I don't have a specific answer for that, because we really have like people from everywhere coming.
Yeah, no, that's fair. You guys definitely have a lot going on. I'm sure it's a little bit different from just like tracking, just general users. It's a lot more complex than just that. So yeah, can you share where can people go to learn a little bit more, website and like social links?
Sure. So the website is korporatio.com. So easy is the .com, can't miss that. On Twitter, we have the /@Korporatio, even in that case. So no extra names, nothing else. The word is already complicated on its own. So
Yeah.
we got lucky on that side. On top of that, we have LinkedIn as well. And the best one, if you don't want to like chat with us directly, you just want to learn about what we do, is Twitter, of course. Otherwise, if you want to interact more, is Discord. We have a public channel on Discord, and you can find like the link to join that on our Twitter page, is in the bio directly there. And there is like a little bit of community there, a little bit of people that are supporting us, helping us out, and so on, as well as like the entire team. So if there is a specific question, maybe relating the legality side or in the technicality or strategy or whatever it is, if it's not me, there is 100% the person in the team in charge that can reply that directly, and it's public. So everybody can see that and so on. So those are like the 3/4, if you consider LinkedIn, places where you can find us.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll throw those on there so that people can make sure to follow you, and if anyone does watch this video, make sure to share it on those platforms and tag them in those posts.
Appreciate
So
that.
yeah, so that's pretty much everything I've got. Is there anything else that you'd like to say to the audience before we finish this off?
Well, there is one thing that is like one concept that I think that like what we're trying to do, especially like from our generation, the generation that, like, so a lot of financial crisis, so the prices of houses going crazy, getting basically like no saving, being closed by debts on the credit cards and so on. It's like what we're trying to do is giving a chance, giving the opportunity to people to set up a business in an effortless, paperless, cashless way of doing that, to give everybody the opportunity to be what they want, to not be relied on like, a boss, a 9-to-5 job, and et cetera, et cetera. Now, I know that from what I said at the beginning of the 16 hours, it doesn't look like a cool thing to do, but you probably can say the same thing. It's amazing when you're independent, when you're like on your own, when you wake up in the morning and you're dedicating yourself on what you really love. And our model opens up potential that I was not even expecting to be possible. We have like one of our clients is a model on Instagram, and he tokenized himself.
Oh,
So
okay.
his supporter can, for example, like get a piece of him that they can like rebate for whatever they want, or for like the sponsorship on the Instagram thing. We get sport players. if you're thinking about like sports in the sense of like football, where a lot of money, or American football or basketball or cricket, where a lot of money are like going around. But take, for example, the sports like table tennis or sailing. I met a person once that she was actually running for the Olympics in the team here in Singapore. She was qualified to represent Singapore. And she put out a crowdfunding campaign to actually raise enough funds to go to the Olympics in Tokyo in 2020. You can have we have one of our user, he's a golf player. And what the shareholders do, they have the possibility to vote and so suggest one tournament compared to another. And if the guy wins, the cash prize becomes a dividend to all the shareholders.
Okay.
There are so many. Esports is another sector where I think something like that can work perfectly. There is an example of an Australian company, if I'm not mistaken, that they have done like a crowdfunding where they were giving like profit share to the supporters, to the users that were taking them. Sorry, give me a second that I need to answer.
Yeah, no worries.
My bad. Hello? Hi, is the second lift on the left? Okay, sorry, my bad.
No worries. I understand. Just earlier, like my fire alarm was going off unnecessarily, so I was hoping that wouldn't happen during this call. So, and it didn't. So,
I got back luck because the guy decided to arrive today. It was supposed to be like between 10 and 13. It has 3 hours. It arrived 6 minutes after 10. Like efficiency, super happy about that. But damn it, so bad luck.
yeah, no worries. I mean, this is pretty much the end of the call. Did you still have anything left to say there before you got the call there?
Well, the thing was just like the fact that like as you get all of these things, just like we want to like create something that allows to empower people to do what they want. Just like go for it. If everybody around you always told you like, no, you can't do that, no, you're crazy, no, just forget about that, get a nice degree, get a good job in a big company, whatever it is, we hope to provide an alternative for that. Like, that it doesn't matter, you want to do something else, just go and do that. We help you. We want to help you with doing that, basically.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's awesome. Speaking as an entrepreneur myself, I think if I had access to something like that when I first started, that would have made my life a lot easier. So it's really great to see that there's blockchain solutions popping up for pretty much everything, whether it's, starting a business or being able to just pay, like point of sale really easily, or
Yeah.
Bitcoin ATM, whatever it is. The solutions are popping up, and glad to have you there for the business side of things. So
Thank you. Appreciate.
yeah, and thanks for being on here. I think people are gonna benefit a lot from this, especially people who are looking to potentially dive into getting their business on the blockchain, or as you said, even just sports players. There's so many different solutions that they can take advantage of, and yeah, so definitely go and check out their website, and I'll have all the links and everything, and I'll display it on the screen so you guys can see all that. And thank you again for being on here. I'm sure people will
Thank
benefit a
you.
ton from this. Yeah, thanks so much.
Appreciate that. Thank you very much. And of course, like, good luck and thank you very much to have me.
Awesome. So go and share this on all the social platforms that you can, and tag us wherever you can. I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, and we have Stefano Covolan, or
Kovalan, yes.
Covolan. Right. I'm always bad
That's
with
perfect.
names, but
It's okay. No worries about that.
all right. Well, thank you so much again. Cheers.
Thank you. Appreciate.